Okay, so let's begin our final session for today in Asterisk from scratch. Just in case you forgot, I'm Alejandro Gutierrez, right? So that's my contact information. Let's talk about advanced Dialplan. Here, we'll see the concept of variables, functions, and also conditional branching and expressions. So if, making decisions whether something is true, go to this place in our Dialplan, and we'll see how we can do that. First, what is a variable? A variable is a container for a value, and I'm pretty sure you guys here program or have done some programming, so you're probably very familiar with the concept of a variable, right? Let's say that we have an extension that extension 1000 dials pjzip server trunk zip 1000 at example.com. What if we want to set this up so that it's a variable now? So we can set up a global variable named trunk with the value of pjzip server trunk. And then we can use that variable or dereference that variable anywhere in our dial plans. So dial the value of trunk. Notice that I mentioned global variable, which there's different, and Asterisk has a few types of variables. Global variables are defined in the global section in extensions.conf. And if you program, I think more of global variables, more like a constant, actually, because whatever you set that in there, you can use that value whenever you want in our Dialplan. We can set channel variables, and guess what a channel variable is? It's a variable that lives within that channel. It's being born when that channel is being born, or when that application is being executed, right? And it dies when that channel dies. What happens if multiple users dial the same extension that creates this variable? I mean, they're all unique, right? So we create different instances of that variable. In this example, we have extension 1000, and we are using the application set to create a channel variable named number. This is just the name. And the value is 0. Notice that we don't have to say if it is an integer, a string. It's actually just a string, right? And it's 0. Then we use the application say number to say the value of number. And pay attention to the syntax. When we are setting that variable, we just specify the name. When we dereference that variable, we use $ curly brackets. And that will give us the value of that variable. Good? We can also set channel variables using the application read. With the read application, the first argument is the name of that variable. So please enter your account number. Whatever that person enters as DTMF is going to be stored in the variable name number. Again, we only specify the name here. Then we use the application playback to say you enter and the number of the value. We're going to say the value of number. Let's see how that looks like from Asterisk CLI. Oop, not in the right place. So first, let's see if we have the extensions for that. So Same as we saw in the PowerPoint, so extension 1000 is setting number to 0 and then say that number. 1001 lets you enter DTMF, is going to store that value into number and then say number. Let's see if that is true. So 1000.
0.
Answer, set number to 0, and then say number, the value of number.
Enter the extension of the person you are trying to reach. You entered 5,412.
Right, so the application say number has the ability to tell you the number, right? 525 or whatever it is. If you use say digits, it's going to say 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay?
First one was the name of the GSM file.
Where?
Enter extension of person.
Oh yeah, this is where are you? Here. Yeah, this is using the read application. We are playing back this file, which is already in our system, and it says enter the extension that you want to reach, which is just a sound file, and then that is going to be stored into number. Then we have another sound file. You enter 5,400. Okay? Any questions so far? Good. Asterisk has predefined channel variables. So every time you pick up your phone, dial an extension, and create a channel, Asterisk has predefined variables for that channel. These are just some, and just a very few of them. There's a lot more. If you do, just Google Asterisk channel variable, and you will see how many we have. These are uppercase, and that is one characteristic of the Asterisk predefined channel variables. One that is very, very important is extend, and it's the value of the current extension. So if you pick up your phone and dial 100, the value of extend is going to be 100, right? That is probably the most useful channel variable. I'm not saying that the other ones are not, but just. You also have context for the current context that you're in, priority for current priority, and just an example, dial status, I don't know what I said, dial status, which is set by the dial application. So whether the call was answer or busy or congested or whatever, you have that set up as dial status. So what happens here? Who can tell me what happens here? We have extension 1000, priority 1 is going to use the application dial to what we guess is a trunk, right? It's going to use the value of the variable trunk, and it's going to be here, and then it's going to dial zip, the value of extension, which is, what is the value of extension right now? 1000, right? In this case, it's 1000. And we can also do a few things with channel variables and with variables in general. We can do substrings. And let's say that we want to take one digit from the beginning. We can do semicolon. No, what is it, the two dots? That's column, right? Column 1, and it takes one digit, right? If you are defining channel variables, you can do that, and it used to be the same value if you did it lowercase or uppercase or whatever. Not anymore. Now they are different, and I would really suggest that you don't create a channel variable that has, you're not going to create a channel variable that has the same name of a predefined channel variable in Asterisk, right? You will just be being crazy at that moment, right? Ideally, you will have lowercase or mixed case, okay? And just know that they are now different, whether you specify lowercase or uppercase. It didn't used to be. We have another type of variables, which is with the application no-op, and these are debugging variables. Usually, when you are programming something, you want to have some information of what's going on. Right? You have your IVR, and you are setting variables, and you need to know what value they get, for example. Or you need to know what step do you have. What step are you in? You can use no-op, and this is just showing that message on the Asterisk CLI. So we have extension 2222. It's setting a channel variable name number to 4567, and then it's using no-op. And this is a message that is going to show on our CLI. And it will look like this. The value of number is 4567. I should have that here. So it didn't fail. It just, we didn't have anything to play back or answer the channel or anything, right? So we have, where is it? Set. We are dialing 2222 at context astricon. Priority 1, set, and this is the name of the channel, by the way, number equals 4567. And then we are using no-op application. Value of number is 4567. So you can actually see what's going on. If you had a typo, then it will probably just not work, right? And for this to work, remember we talked about verbosity, right? That you can, how many V's you set up when you do asterisk minus VR. So it has to be at least 3. And there's another that you can use, verbose, instead of no-op, where you can set the specific value for verbose for that message to show. Let me show you. I don't remember if it's at the beginning or at the end. Let's show it like this. So I'm telling Asterisk, show me this message, even if, from verbose 0 and above, right? So I can do core set verbose 0. I dialed the wrong extension, I think. Yeah. Why is it not working? Oh. Right? So even though we set up verbose to 0, our message is showing right here. Right? How do you think that can be useful? Let's say that we have a system that has a lot of information coming out on the CLI, well, we can set up our messages to show in core variable 0, and nothing else will show except for what we want to show. Any questions so far? Good. Asterisk also has functions, and they are no way related to what you will think of a function if you are a programmer. So it's not the same concept. These are more, think of data structures. Actually, you might think of arrays, but let's not get into that. So they can take arguments, and we'll see how that works, and they get or set data to a channel. So if we want to get information from a channel or set information to that channel, we can do that with functions. The syntax, this is for variables, right? $, curly brackets. For functions, because they take arguments, we have the name of the function and then the arguments, which might be empty if that is what we want, but if we have arguments, then we need to specify those. For example, the timeout, right? Function. So what is the value of the timeout right now? Just like core show applications, we have core show functions. And if we do core show function and the name of that function is going to tell us what the syntax is and what are the arguments that can handle and what are the options that you have. Let's see, for example, timeout. So we're using, well, this is extension S. Priority 1 is using the timeout function to give us the value of the timeout digit. And this is a timeout between digits. So when you're on an IVR and you press the extension that you wish to call, you press 1, Asterisk is not going to route that call immediately, right? Well, if it has a match, it's going to wait to see if you are going to enter another digit, and that is timeout digit. So here's showing what is the value of that digit timeout, right? We're using the $ curly brackets to get that information from the channel, and then we are setting, and notice that same as variables, we don't use the $ curly brackets when we are setting values. We use the set application to set the absolute timeout to 3,600 seconds. That means that that call is going to be hang up at 1 hour. The absolute timeout is how much time that channel is going to be open. We have another function, for example, the length, or the length function, which is going to tell us how many digits or how many characters does that have. In this case, we're doing whatever that is a pattern that has at least 2 digits, and the first one is from 0 to 9. It's going to say digits, the length of the value of extend. If I dial 100, what is going to say? 3, right? We have 3 characters. Notice how we are using a variable inside the function, and that's perfectly fine. So it's length of the value of extend. What is going to say if we take out the curly brackets and the $?
It's just going to say whatever the extension.
It's going to say 5 because the length of extend is 5, right? The word, how many characters does it have? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Unless we are doing the dereference because we're doing $ curly brackets. So give me the value of extend. The what? Oh, yeah, we're missing one. Thank you. He's totally right. Let me fix that right away. Yep. Better. Thank you. And because we are getting the result of that function, we are using the curly brackets and $, right? The what?
The function curly bracket, parentheses,
This is the argument for that function.
I'm saying a function, if you look at it, curly brackets with a nested parentheses, that is a function.
Yes, right. So whenever you see a function name, if you see the curly brackets, the parentheses, that's inside the curly brackets, that's most likely a function, right? If you see it by itself, then it could be depending where you are, it could be an application, it could be, right? Because applications are also name and arguments, right, in parentheses. So. Functions are what?
Could I call a function inside a function as its parameter?
A function inside a function? Yeah.
So how far does it dereference?
How many nesting can you do? I don't know how many you can do. Does anyone know how many nestings you can do? No. Yeah. The what?
10 nested functions.
10?
Depends how deep you are in your Dialplan, you'll overload the stack.
Okay.
Words can't keep track of where you're at.
Right. So is it?
11, 10 is about before you start using performance.
Okay. So 10, we'll take that as okay. So 10. What happens if you need to do more than that, right? Well, you'll probably set up a variable, get the result of a few functions, and then keep going, right? You don't need to nest and nest and nest. Let's see another example of a very useful function, and it's caller ID. So caller ID is a function. Yeah. And the arguments that can take, it can take a few arguments, but these are the two probably the most common ones. So here we're using extension 9, at least 5 digits. It starts with 9, and the other 3 are digits from 0 to 9, and then whatever you want, right? It's setting the caller ID number to this number. And then it's setting the caller ID name to digim. And after that, and only after that, it's creating a PJ-SAVE channel with the value of extend, and we are taking the first digit out. We haven't seen that today, or moving one position from the beginning, right? Let's see how that works. Yep. Okay, so here, let me take this out. This. And let me show you here. What is your IP address? 224. So here we have this phone, right? Yep, go back. So when I dial to that phone, well, we get whatever caller ID, name, and number we have set up for that. It's not refreshing. Why not? Oh, I'm calling myself. Sorry. My bad. Right? So we see the caller ID and name and number, unknown, and that number that we set up. if we use the color ID function to change that, and we're going to do that here, so I'm just going to comment this out. So here we have the same extension, 700X, but we are setting caller ID number to this number and the name to this name. And we are dialing PJZip, the value of extend, for 20 seconds. So very similar to the other one, but now we are changing the caller ID. What do we need to do in CLI? At least Dialplan reload, right? Thank you. There you go. So now when we dial that endpoint, we see the caller ID name and number that we set up.
Please leave your message after the tone.
Any questions? The name for the caller ID? I set up caller ID name, my name. Yeah. And the number, this number. Now, don't go crazy and change the caller ID number or name on your outbound calls. Your provider is probably not going to allow that, but. Right? We have a few other functions. Here we have say number, the length function. So we use extension 1003, we answer, we have some random variable, that's just the name of that variable, equals 5, and then we use say number application to say the value of some random variable. What do you think it's going to say? 5. Good. And then we say number of the length of the value of some random variable. So what is going to say? 1, right? Are we all good in that? Great. I have someone that might want to talk to you, and you might want to say hi as well. So, yeah. So, hey, Mark. How's it going? Yeah. Good, man. Good, good. Here you have a mic.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be good.
Hello, everybody. You guys, I understand, are all newbies. Kind of just getting started with Asterisk. Is that a fair assessment? Cool. How's Ando been doing for you?
They will say good, yeah.
Okay. All right, good.
I'm paying them to say good.
Okay. All right, awesome. Well, let's see. I guess this is going to be about 17 years since I started Asterisk, so
Yeah.
hard to imagine it's been that long. I guess next year it'll be barely legal. And
Barely, yeah.
we always said starting a company is probably a lot like raising a child is, and maybe it's Asterisk has kind of moved out of the house now, so it's
Yeah.
pretty
It's
cool to
everywhere.
see it getting such an incredible life of its own. So, we'll just pick somebody out in the audience. What made you decide to get involved with Asterisk today?
I'm actually a veteran, but I brought newbie with me.
Oh, okay.
We love the openness of it and the configurability of it. Open source is good, so works really well for what we need. All our applications.
So, is anybody using Asterisk for something other than a business phone system right now? Conference Bridge? Okay. Anybody else got anything? Okay. Say again? Present phone calls? Prison phone calls. Okay. Cool. Hope I don't have to use that one. Okay, great. And do you mean like natural disasters or like just? Okay. Excellent. So at the time great. Well, at the time I started Asterisk, it was novel to build a phone system that was out of software. But now, as a technologist, what makes it most interesting are the applications like that, where you're creating something new or answering a need that was not originally conceived of in the creation of the software. No, I haven't worked on Asterisk in a number of years now. So I'm recently started a different software project, not at all in the telecom space, but still bears some resemblance, I guess. Any questions out in the audience? You might be able to help answer. Nothing? Autograph? No. Oh, well, whatever. You know, actually, I was not the person that really saw Asterisk as becoming something big until much, much later. When I started, of course, it was to solve my personal need for a phone system. And then after a couple of years, kind of realized that that phone system was much more interesting, but I really viewed it still primarily as a telephone system software. And there was a guy that worked for Intel/Dialogic by the name of Gary Gilmore that came and visited us in Huntsville. And he came and looked at all our stuff and said, you know, this is going to change the world. Do you have any idea, you know, how huge this is going to be and what a big impact? And, you know, I kind of looked at him like, really? And then after another year or two, it was like, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, being such a proprietary industry with such a need for change and such a technical audience, it really was very ripe for an open source solution. And fortunately, just happened to be the right product at the right time, and was able to really get going. I have certainly plenty of fun memories on the early days. In fact, I think the very next year, I was giving a talk in Dallas, and I was introduced to the CTO of MCI, and the guy introduced me and said, yeah, this is the guy that wrote Asterisk. Have you heard of Asterisk? And the guy from MCI said, I haven't heard of Asterisk. Of course I've heard of Asterisk. Who hasn't heard of Asterisk? And this was like 2002, and I guarantee you a lot of people did not know what Asterisk was in 2002. So, but anyway, it's pretty cool. Sure, no problem.
I have a question for you. So where do you see Asterisk going?
Where do I see Asterisk going?
Yeah. How do you see?
It's really kind of funny because Asterisk started as kind of a very visible project in which everyone who used Asterisk knew what Asterisk was very deeply, and was very excited about telephone system software. I remember trying to show all my friends how cool this was, that I could get dial tone out of my computer, and everybody just kind of looked at me like, okay, so it's a phone. And then now, what happens is Asterisk moves deeper and deeper off into the background. And in fact, the only way I really frequently know that I'm talking to Asterisk is really because of Allison's voice that still remains relatively ubiquitous. So when I call somewhere and I hear Asterisk or I hear Allison's voice and familiar prompts, then a lot of times I'll ask, how do you like your phone system, by the way? So, do what? Well, yeah. Or sometimes you'll be like, oh, never mind then.
Yeah. Who wrote that?
Say again? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I can hold that.
Okay.
One with you as well?
Oh, Okay, cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. No problem.
Want to say goodbye? Or
Sure. Or
I don't
if there's anybody has any
Yeah.
other questions, I'll be available from here for a couple days. So, yeah.
Fly yourself in today, and how was it?
That's a good question. Did I find myself in today? And I decided to do a commercial ticket at the last minute because I couldn't get any of my aviation buddies that would go out here.
bad
So,
weather or what?
to get here from Huntsville would take about 5 hours with the stop, and that's not that much shorter than it is to go commercial. And I didn't really feel like doing that just all by myself, hanging out for 5 hours in the plane. So I decided last minute to go commercial. But I did go to Vegas and Orlando the last two. In Denver, I did. Actually, I had a funny story you should ask Leslie Conway about coming back from Denver.
Okay, cool.
I don't know, you got a few minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Go
because
ahead.
it has nothing to do with Asterisk. But
No worries.
David, do you know this story? So coming back from Denver, at the time, I flew myself out there, and I was leaving at the same time, basically, as the rest of the Digium crew was. And so I was basically out near Kansas, and I heard another aircraft ask for direct Huntsville. Well, there are not very many airplanes that are going from, that side of the country direct to Huntsville, so I was pretty sure it was the Huntsville United flight that the rest of the team was on. And so I asked, hey, is that the United flight going to Huntsville? And they said it was. And I said, well, I've got a friend on that flight. Could you tell Leslie Conway I said hello? So, and believe it or not, when you're actually in level flight, there's really not very much going on. So that was not like a big deal to ask that or anything. Then when I landed, I called Leslie, and before I could say anything, she's like, well, hello to you too, and then proceeds to tell me her side of the story, which from her perspective was that she was just about to fall asleep in the back of the plane, and she, thinks she hears someone ask for her name, but she's like, no, it just must be my imagination. And then one of the other Digium guys says, Leslie, they're calling for you. They said, ring your flight attendant call button. So she rings her little call button, and the flight attendant comes back with a very confused look on her face and says, I have a note for you from the pilots. And so she hands her this note, and she opens it, and it just says, Mark says hi. Yeah. So anyway, that was my funny flying from Astrocon story. All right, anything else? All right, I've probably wasted enough of y'all's time, but we'll be here for a couple days. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to catch me down here.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having a few minutes with us. And I do have to say that the first time I saw Mark was in 2009. And I took 3 flights to get to Huntsville to take my decap test for the first time. And I saw him at the lobby, and this is Marcus Spencer, right? So I was like, can I take a picture with you, right? He said, sure, okay, I'll stop by later to see how it goes with your decap test. Took the picture, and I thought, well, I'm never going to see this guy again, right? He did go to the classroom and ask about the decap, and we had a few drinks that day. So I do have to say, and not because he's here, I always say it on the trainings, he's a nice guy, and whoever knows him knows that he's a nice guy. So good thing that you know him, and good thing that he had a few minutes for us. So, extensions.conf. Did you get a good picture? Yeah. How much time we have? Oh, okay, a few minutes. So, We also have expressions in Asterisk. And expressions allow us to evaluate variables and take decisions based on that. We can have strings, integers or booleans, so 0 or 1s, or is this greater than the other, right? And we can take actions based on that. So let's see some examples. Expressions have $ square brackets, so not anymore curly brackets, so square brackets, right? We can use variables inside expressions, of course. Those variables remain with their own syntax, so $ curly brackets. We have mathematical operators, so we can do add, subtract, multiply, divide, and this is the remainder of that division. So we can do, give me the result of 1 plus 2, right? And we use $ curly bracket 1 plus 2 to get the result of that expression. We can also use equal, greater than, equal, less than, equal, and different. So is this variable less than this variable? Is this different than the other? We can do those type of things. Remember when we dial one IVR and we press 1, 2, 3, 4, and we were checking, is this value equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We can also use a and or, so we can have multiple conditions. And this is just like, I think, any programming language, right? You have, is this variable greater than 0? And is this variable less than 9? And they both have to comply for that to be true, right? If it is an or, then at least one of them needs to comply. Any questions about this? Yep.
So the variables and channels, if one person calls in, types in a number, and another person calls in, types in a number, can you add those variables together? But because they're different channels?
He's asking if you have a channel variable and one person dials that channel, right? That creates a variable with a value. And then another person calls that same extension, which is another channel, which creates another extension with that value. Can you add them together? Well, yes, but it's not that simple. You might need to get a connection to Asterisk to get an event. So what is the event? Someone set up a variable to this value, and then you need to monitor those two channels to see what's going on. But it's not, I don't see a way to do that just Dialplan syntax, just because there are two different instances of that variable. You can have that event send that to you if you have AMIs, for example, right? Here we have extension 6132 setting variable 2 or var2 equals to the result of adding 2 plus 3. So what is the value of var2? 5. 5, right? Then we're using the Noop application to show that on the CLI. So variable var2 contains the value of var2, which is here, and that's 5. Everything good? Nice. That is also good for counters. In programming, counters are very, very common, right? So we have something that we need to do a few times, but not more than that, or make a decision whether it's been more than 3 or 4 times. Here, we are setting up a counter, set count equals 3, and then we are setting count to the value of count plus 1, right? And because that is a mathematical operation, we have an expression for that. So it's $ curly bracket, $ square bracket for the expression, and then the value of count plus 1. What do you think it's going to say here? Right? 4. Nice. So yeah. So value count equals 3, then count equals count plus 1, 4. The value of count equals 4. Now, remember we had go to? We also have go to if, because now that we can have, we can compare one thing to another, it will be a good idea to make decisions based on that comparison. So we have the go to if. The first thing is the first argument is the expression, right? So $ brackets and the expression. And this is var1 greater than 2? It's this equal to that. Then we use the question mark to specify the destination when true. So when that is true, it's going to this destination. That destination follows the same syntax as the go-to application. So again, it could be context, extension, priority, or label. It could be extension, priority, or label, or just label or priority, right? Depending on how many of these you specify. Then we have, I forgot how you call this. How do you call this sign? Column, right? Column. So then we have the column at the destination for false. So what happens when that is not true? Where do we go? So we set up the destination here. Let's see an example of that. So we have extension 6135, setting up a variable, test variable equal 1. Go to if. Is test variable greater than 2? No. We all agree, right? It's not greater than 2. So it goes here. It's going to look for a label named monkeys. It's going to find that here, and it's going to play back TT monkeys. Good? Now, what happens if variable is equals 3? So is test variable greater than 2? Yes. What is the destination? Well, we don't have anything to specify, and because of that, the Dialplan is going to continue the next priority. So it's perfectly fine. We're just going to come from here to play back TT whistles instead of going to monkeys. And very important here, this hang up. What do you think that is there? Right, because he said, well, to hang up the call before it gets to the other destination, right? If we don't have this hang up here, test variable is greater than 2, continue, TT whistles, and then it's going to play TT monkeys if we don't have that hang up here. So remember to have that. And in general, it is a good idea to hang up channels. Okay?
Could we have expressions, inline expressions in those?
What do you mean?
Let's say we want to set a variable based on that condition. Could we do that there in that line, or we'll have to?
This is a destination. So here, if you want to set a variable based on that condition, you'll do go to if. If that is true, then you will send it to an extension label priority or whatever that you set equals variable equals to a value. So this is just a jump, a go to. Well, it's context, extension, priority, or label, right? What you can do, you can have multiple go to if, one after the other, right? That's usually very common for time conditions. And there's another application for that, go to if time. So if it's not working on the same condition, let's check the other and the other. Right, so you have go to if time. If it's from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, go here. If not, you may have another go to if time, because then it might not be that one, but it might be Saturday from 9 to 4, which also works. So let's see this. So we have, this is an IVR. Well, this is not really. This is an incremental loop example. So we set them test variable equal 1. Go to if. Is variable greater than 2? No. So it goes where? Monkeys. TT monkeys. Test variable equals the value of test variable plus 1. So now it's 2. Goes to begin. Is 2 greater than 2? No. Plays monkeys. 3. It's greater than 2. Yes. Plays whistles. What do you think we send it to here and not here? Because then we'll be setting the variable to 1 again, so we have, that will never end, right? So just typical programming best practices, right? I mean, or whatever. Here we have an IVR example. I don't think we have, do we have anyone coming in from a later session here? No, right? Okay, good. Yeah? I think it was 4:15. That was in a hurry. Good. Good. So here we have an IVR. It's going to answer, and we have an improved IVR. So we're going to set up a variable so that if the person makes a mistake or selects an option that is not one of the available options, where they can do that, but no more than 3 times, right? Because we want to hang up the call at some point. We have fail attempts equals 0. So go to if. It's fail attempts greater than 2. No, right? So it doesn't have a destination. That means it's going to continue for the next priority. So thank you for calling my company, whatever, press 1, 2, 3. Let's say that they made a mistake again. They pressed 9. It's going to here. That is not a valid extension. Then it's setting the value of failed attempt to the value of failed attempt plus 1. Right? So now it's what? 1, right? Because it was 0. And then it's sending that to S, extension S, label menu beginning. In the same context. Because we are in the same context, we don't need to specify the context. But as I was saying before, if you are starting with Asterisk, it might be a good idea to be specific. Context, extension, and priority. Now, what happens when they made a mistake again, right? So fail attempts, eventually, it will be greater than 2. What happens when it's greater than 2? What happens? Well, it's going to a label named hang up, right? This is not actually hanging up the call, but it's going here, and this is hanging up the call, right? Sorry. Any questions about this? Good. What is a channel variable? Who can tell me what a channel variable is? It holds a value, yeah, and it's a variable that only exists while that channel exists, right? So when that channel dies, for saying it that way, that variable dies, okay? What are some of the predefined channel variables that we have in Asterisk? Extend, that would be probably one of the main ones. Context, priority, dial status, which is set by a dial application, and we have a bunch. So those are available every time that you create a channel. Right? What is a function? Or what do they do?
It takes arguments. These are applications.
The what?
These are functions in the asterisk which takes arguments.
They take arguments, right? So the functions take arguments, and they get or set data to a channel, right? And we saw a few caller ID, for example. So we can get the information from the caller ID, or we can set data to the caller ID. What is another variable that we have in Asterisk? Another type of variables that we have, or that we could have. There's one named globals, global variables. We didn't mention in detail, but those are defined in the globals section in extensions.conf. And you will set a name for that variable equals the value of that variable. And you can use that variable anywhere in your Dialplan. So as I was saying before, I kind of think like more of a constant in programming, where you set up something on top and then you use it anywhere. What application can we use to create a custom channel variable?
Application.
Yeah, in our dial plan, when we dial extension 100, we want to create a variable and give it a value. Set, right? The application set. And we specify the name of that variable equals the value of that variable. What if we want to dereference a variable? We want to get the value of that variable out. The most important thing is that it's $ curly brackets, right? If we want to get the value out of that variable. We could use the Noop application if we want to show in the CLI, but whenever we want to get the value out, we need to use $ curly brackets, the name of that variable. I did mention that there is a way in which you can set a variable so that when an endpoint creates a channel, that variable is available on that channel. Remember set var? Let me show you that here. We can use set var, and we can use that on pjc.conf. We can use that on Daddy or chandaddy.conf, eeks. Even in the old zip.conf. Just make sure that if you do that, it's not set underscore var, it's set var one word. Then the name of the variable and the value. Every time this endpoint creates a channel, we are going to have that variable, that channel variable, available for us. So if we want to have something specific for each endpoint, this is the way to go. Any questions about this?
Maybe a use case for that.
Oh, we just did. So here we are setting endpoint 7, we have endpoint 7001, and we are setting this variable, which is more, well, I don't know why it's MV, but it's mailbox. It's supposed to be their mailbox, voicemail box, right? It's probably VM box, but it has this name. Now, in our extensions.conf, we have a star 97 to check voicemail. But what voicemail are we checking? Each endpoint, each user has their own voicemails. So we could just leave it empty, voicemail main, opening and closing parentheses, but then they will need to enter their account number and then the password. Or we could use the value of MV box, which if I'm 7001, and well, I'm not, but the endpoint is 7001, a dial says star 97, is going to check voicemail main 7001, or 7002, 7003, whatever that is. Any questions with it? Good. And you can set multiple, you can do multiple set bars, one after the other. What is the right syntax for the go-to-if application? So we have go-to-if, open parentheses, closing parentheses at the other end. What comes first? The expression, right? And how do we represent expressions? So $ brackets, right? And inside those $ brackets, we get whatever expression we need. And we can get variables, functions, whatever it is. After the expression, what is next? The question mark, right? For the destination when true. And then the colon for destination when false. And yeah, close the parentheses. Okay, let's see this. Oop. What is the answer? Proper syntax. Everyone agrees? Yep. Which of the following is not a channel variable? Yep. Yep. Sorry. So which one is it? Who says the first one? Yeah, I think you guys are winning, yeah. It is the first one, right? So we have the expression, and expressions are $ square brackets, expression, question mark, destination true, colon, destination false. Are we good? So which one is it? Who says it's the first one? Good. Second? Okay, so it seems like we all agree it's the last one. We can use functions, and when we set data to that channel, again, we use them with a set application, and we don't do $ curly brackets or anything like that. Just the name of the function, the arguments, and the value.